My name is Srisu Subrahmanvan. I was with Ingram Micro till about 3 months back. I'm with a new organization called Car Auction Services. So you get a twofer, a unique thing in this conference. You get a talk about operations excellence, business transformation in 2 different companies. So we're going to do a case study in each. The second one is going to be more of a, since I've only been in the company for about a couple of months, I'll give you my thoughts on how the structure works, what I'm going through in terms of the journey itself. First off, I'll tell you that you may not learn anything from this discussion that you haven't heard from Angel because he covered everything, but it'll give you a construct of how we think in this industry, and it may help you walk away with a few things that you may want to adapt as well. We all are under pressure to do things differently. The theme of this talk is really around how do we make sure that we're doing the things at the right speed. We are under constant, I am under constant pressure to innovate, change our business model, find an operations excellence program that I can deploy tomorrow, and by the end of tomorrow evening, I'm done. I'm sure you've never heard of that before. So this is really about how do you fail-safe all these things, of these competing pressures. Customers ask us all the time, how do you get your operations excellence program globally done in 3 months? And the answer to that is, I can't. I can't do that with satisfying what you want, but if you give me a business problem, I can probably address that more succinctly. Anil and I actually have been in 3 different companies, 4 actually different companies launching these kind of journeys. One of us clearly doesn't understand what kind of mistake we're making. But this is, we've been through United Airlines when we were post-bankruptcy and we're trying to change the culture there. I've been at Career Education, it's a for-profit education company, and then we were at Brightpoint together, and now we're doing it at Ingram. He's continuing it, I'm moving on to a different challenge. So with that, I'm going to flip to something which is really the crux of what we're trying to do. How do you find the right balance? There is increasing pressure. I remember walking into my boss's office about 2 years back, and he said, "Lean works, I get it, I want it done now." Okay, can't really argue with that. At the same time, he had never been personally involved in the lean journey. He was a CFO at a public company. He knew exactly what the results were. He could count the pennies. He could not personally invest himself in that journey over a long period of time. He knew the effects of it. He loved it as a financial stakeholder, but he couldn't appreciate what it actually took to do that. So I didn't walk him down that sort of path saying, can be done. I said, okay, let's try it out. There's a different culture. He was new to the company, so let's try it out. But this whole thing started off by saying, I'm going to go into Ingram Micro, but what are some of the things that we need to think about? Whether you're starting a journey or not, or you're in the midpoint of a journey, or you're trying to assess whether your health of your journey is right or not, what are some of the things that you really need to think about? And Angel, quite frankly, he did a really good job of saying it in 3 things, right? I'm going to go a little deeper into that, and it should map to those 3 things. First of all, how many people know Ingram Micro? I'd be shocked if I see more than 5 hands. Okay. It is the largest Fortune 100 company you've never heard of. Okay. It's a $43 billion company. Throw all these things out. Running 180 locations globally, running in 52 countries, don't have any operations in Antarctica. Other than that, we covered every other place. We were number 62 in the Fortune 500. Since October last year, we became a private company held by the H&A Group out of China. So we're no longer in the Fortune 500 as a result of being private. As I said, $43 billion company in 2015. Operations-wise, we span over 40 countries. So it's a global, complex operation. We do kind of similar things. We're the world's largest technology distributor, and we are also a very large supply chain operator. So we do operations on behalf of other technology companies as well. Some of the devices that I see in front of me right now. There are some neat statistics around Manhattan and Monaco, but I'll leave it for you guys to look at it later. But we have a complex operation in the sense that we have 30,000 employees around the globe who are involved in our work. So when we started this, we first talked about, okay, what are some of the things that we consider when we have this enormous pressure from our senior leadership to execute lean, specifically around lean, but you can adapt this to any cultural change. The first thing is, what is your culture? It really matters. For us, it really mattered because we were in transition of a culture as well. We knew what the culture was. It's a very legacy-minded, core, low-margin business, very cost-conscious, and we were migrating to a much more value-added services kind of a culture. It matters because if you don't understand where you're ending up, you could easily shortcut this or short-circuit this whole transformation. And if your people don't come along in that journey, it becomes very difficult to translate a value proposition around why you're doing this. How complex is your world? I'll come back to Ingram, but if you run a very large portfolio business, if you're a GE, it takes years to get this journey off the ground. And it did take them a long time to get off the ground and become mature. How driven is your leadership? Now, I gave you the example of what my boss said, and then I walked into his office. Not everybody's like that. I think there was a question from a gentleman who said, my boss thinks he already does lean before we started lean, or something to that effect. I don't think you got a satisfactory answer. The right thing might have been to fire the guy, but maybe not his call. But how driven is your leadership? How do they really understand what this can produce, and what is the drive for them to move forward with this? Because they should understand it's a painful journey. It's the third thing about what Anu George talked about when you talk about change, right? Is the ability for a person to start thinking that way. I can exhibit the right behaviors, I can say the right things, but ultimately, what one of my favorite CEOs from my past life said, I can't get into every single head and turn on the switch. Everybody has to do it for themselves. The one big thing about burning, I've never been to a conference where this hasn't been brought up, right? It's a burning platform. There was even a session on the burning platform that I had to sit through for 4 hours about 10 years back. What the hell is your burning platform? If you don't have a burning platform, maybe it's not the right time. For us, the burning platform at that time was remarkable and short. It's competitive pressures. If we don't do something and the customers are asking us to do it, we're going to be out of business. When you launch something like this, you got to ask yourself, and I think we had a robust discussion this morning around, do you have the right talent to actually embark on something like this? Or if you're at a midway point, do you have the ability to scale? And Anil will talk a little bit about the scaling part of it as well. How many companies get on a large transformational change when they have 17 other transformational changes going on? The ability for the organization to absorb another shock to the system is fairly limited. And mature companies think through the kind of change that we are trying to impose or trying to absorb into the organization very, very meticulously. I belong to an organization now which I talk about it. I told the leadership team that the way you guys go about it, or we go about it now, is we have very deliberate intent. And we have very deliberate pursuit of that intent. Meaning we're slow, in other words, but we think through a lot of things, and when we launch it right, which is great. But we also have the luxury of doing that because we're not under enormous pressure to do something today, but we are under enormous pressure to change ourselves. We'll come back to that. And then the external drive. What are your customers saying? For us, it was very easy. The customers were saying, you absolutely didn't deliver yesterday, and you need to figure out a way of delivering. And here's something that I know works, and why aren't you doing it? Our stakeholders, our financial stakeholders, say the same thing. You're not delivering what you committed to as a management team. You need to do better. So I'll rewind 2 years back because this is when that original thing started, right? We need lean more than ever and now. So you know who that was. Some of the other voices we heard. Ingram actually implemented Six Sigma several years back, about maybe 10 to 12 years back. And it was unfortunately unceremoniously dissolved. There are some guys from that Six Sigma era that got absorbed into businesses, but for the most part, the Six Sigma association doesn't necessarily help when we are trying to launch a journey like this. This is a favorite quote of mine. This was my last boss when I left the company, the CEO. We will do it, and we're going to do it globally. No questions. This is great. That's what we want to hear. But that is not sufficient for success, as you guys all know. This is pretty much all our customers who we expect you to be experts in this. The reason we picked you as supply chain partners is because you guys excel at this. We did excel at it in specific pockets. we didn't accelerate it globally. And this is a mechanism for us to scale up all across the globe. So I'll just go through the same slide again. Organizational culture. We went from, in 2015, we went from a centralized or regional model to a country-led model. I don't know how many people have country-led models. We have 52 countries. We have 52 CEOs in our organization. The CEO made it very clear. He handed the keys of the kingdom to the countries and said, you're going to do what it takes for you to be successful. Here's finance, here's legal, here's HR, here's IT, here's operations. Now go for it. Because I've heard you guys complain about it incessantly before, that you couldn't deliver because of all the other functions. Now you got it. So we made a very deliberate decision to go to a decentralized model. Makes it challenging for him now. But that's something you have to consider. If you're a centralized model, you can drive a lot of these changes very easily. The CEO comment on the previous page makes it so much easier if you have one big monolithic business where you can drive the change very fast and it's scalable. You already know about the Ingram's global complexity. We run in 52 countries, 180 locations, small to huge. Our leadership drive is very, very solid at the top. I say we as if I'm an Ingram, please forgive me for that. Very solid at the top, but as you would expect, as you go down, there's a certain amount of dissociation from that reality. Our burning platform was twofold. One is we have new owners who expect a much better performance out of us. The second is our customers telling us that we need to perform at a much better scale than we have in the past. The third thing, which may be minor, but it hits our business units really hard, is pricing pressures and competitive pressures. I'm sure nobody in this room knows what I'm talking about. This is especially because we run a 1.5% net margin business. I don't know how many people run 1.5% net margin businesses. It translates about 6% gross margin. We don't have the luxury of being wrong. And for a company of this size, with that kind of margin, not to have an OpEx program doesn't make any sense. And everybody agrees on that. Resource and talent, you're looking at the guy who basically was the 1.5 resources that was doing this for a while. Mo at the back of the room runs our lean operations in Canada. He's one of our rising stars. Our approach was very simple. We'll get the best guys from the inside. So Mo's an engineer who ran our Canadian engineering function. We're going to go through the learning curve on lean, but we're going to get outside talent as well. This is exactly the recipe that I used at United and other places. We basically had the best of both worlds come in. We had guys from the outside who could hit the ground running from a lean standpoint, didn't know the business. We had a lot of guys who had credibility inside the organization we could train. I don't know how many people shortchange this. So one of the first conversations when we talked about global implementation is, so I just give you 30 resources and we should be done in a year. Yes, if you say we'll be done in a year, we'll be done in a year. That's true. I talked about that 52 countries. We could not implement this in 2015 if we had wanted to, just because of the amount of change we're going through. This is a takeaway after the fact for me. It's a really good sign when your leadership pauses and says, this is not the right time, or slow this down. Because it's a very easy tendency, especially if you're not on the trenches, to say, go faster. And it takes a certain amount of maturity to get your leadership to a point where they say, slow down, I don't want to fail. They're under enormous pressure as well. And then I talked about the external drive. Two of our biggest customers came to us and said, if you don't have an OpEx program by this time next year, wait out. Pretty big impetus to change. All right, I'm going to segue a little bit now. Having considered all that, we had a few choices to make. So the approach we could continue to go down is you could do a big bang. So everyone does it, like our CEO said, everyone does it globally. We could have done the grassroots, which is, where does it work today, and can we just take that and see if everybody else wants to do it? Targeted application, which is customers said, these sites really sucked, so can we go there? Or can it just be a top-down thing? I mean, can we just start with Anil, give him 30 resources, and start plowing through? Then we had the predicament around, is this Six Sigma or Lean? For us, it was an easy choice. Six Sigma just had a bad taste in the mouth in the company, and Lean was much more easier it is much more frontline friendly for us. Then you have this endless discussion on decentralized, centralized, we have a hybrid model, all that stuff. So I'll let Anil talk about that. We went with the hybrid approach predominantly because of the talent level that we needed on both sides as well. Just comment on this before I hand over to Anil. We went a very slow, deliberate route. We said we need proof points within the industry, within our company in the first 18 months. It gives us the ability to showcase success to 52 businesses, and then move forward with the rest of the implementation, which is kind of where we are.
Anil Nair, Executive Director, Global Lean, Safety, and CSR. Safety is job one. I love CSR, corporate social responsibility, making sure environmentally we are the right people, and then of course global lean. Just a very exciting program to make sure we remain competitive and fresh and young as a company. Just quickly, what does Ingram Micro do within the four walls? We get product in. Once the customer orders a product, we make sure that we have inventory. If not, we get the product in, working with the people who own the material that comes into our building. We put it away in inventory, we pick, pack, and ship. And then either our customer gets it and they give it to their customers, or we send it to the eventual end user. Right? 44 million orders a year, 70 million cartons, 400 million units annually. So we handle quite a few things. 3 out of 5 mobility product, a cell phone or an iPad, or sorry, a smart pad, goes through us. Yeah, right? All right. So what did we do? We wanted to understand our capability. Who are we in terms of capability, right? As a simple example of capability is, when a truck comes to the door, how long does it take to get that product in the inventory? Very simple. 24 hours is what I was told. I said, good, we know 24 hours. And then I started talking to the customer. I said, anything more than 4 hours, you're losing. You will lose me, all right? And the financial people said, $500,000 in that capital. That truck has $500,000 of product. So the longer you take, I'm paying cost of capital, right? So capability, culture. What kind of culture do we have? Do we have culture where we expose problems, or we have culture where we hide problems under the rug? You can guess which one we have, all right? Or which one we continues to have. It's a very young program. Mindset. Is it something that I'm going to be fearless as an individual, right? If I see a problem, do I raise it, right? If I see somebody needs help, am I going to step forward and work together to achieve the objectives? Then what we did, we said we have to come up with a simple program. Has to be simple. Has to stick, so it has to be sustainable. And then we can scale it. So these are the 3 sort of principles we wanted out of our program. We selected 4 ecosystems across the globe. One is in Toronto, Mo is sitting in the back, Straubing, Germany, Crick, UK, and Eastern Creek, Australia. I was fortunate enough to travel to all these wonderful places, especially Australia during Christmas. We wear shorts, it's nice, right? So we came up with a program. So there's a lot of detail. I just want you to focus on 2 things. First thing is engage frontline employees. I mean, that was without doubt the most important thing about the program. You've got to engage. We are a commoditized business, not very technical in terms of the operations. We have a high level of what we call as temporary, casual, seasonal labor force. So it had to stick for them. And then, of course, leadership, commitment, and action. I call it, you have to provide us the cover, air cover. When we start to do this, we're going to get shot at, so you need to provide us the cover. 5 things we said as a program that is kind of directionally what we want to do. We want to focus on teams, not individuals. We want to focus on layout from a material flow perspective. We move material and information flow. We need to be organized, clean workplace. People can see, understand, and then standardized work, right? All of us understand what that means. And then, of course, visual controls. I need to know if I'm winning or losing. 1992, Duke versus Kentucky semifinals, right? The coach took a timeout with 2 seconds left because I could see, right? I could take a timeout. So visual controls, very, very important. With that in place, we said, let's do a pilot, inbound as an example. We were task-oriented, functional, no space ownership. I call it the homestead concept in the United States in the 19th century, and then no near-term outcome-oriented goals to achieve, right? It's always at the end of the day, at the end of the month, I look at the goals. So we said, what do? We put a program in place. PDCA, very simple. People understand that. I said, hey, that's a wheel. If you can move it up the hill, you're winning, right? And when you move it up the hill, once you figure out what is helping you, just stabilize it with standards, right? And they started to understand, frontline employees started to understand, the forklift operator, the picker, the packer, they started to understand this vernacular. So he said, okay, you know what, before and after, we went to a team-based, we gave them ownership. Actually, if you walk into our sites in Toronto, they have 5 lanes, 2 dock doors that belongs to me. It's my house, my home. And they start to sort of get creative. And then, of course, outcome-oriented, output-oriented, instead of, oh, what's your job? I do forklift operation. No, no, no. Your job now, as we go forward, is to win. What are the wins? 4 things: safety, quality, delivery, productivity. Angel was talking about SQCD, cost. C is cost. We went to SQDP, all right? Safety, quality, delivery, productivity. Here's an example, Straubing, Germany. 6 o'clock in the evening, look at the amount of product sitting on the floor. I can see probably $3 to $4 million on the floor. And we put together a team. They came up with some ideas. That's 6 o'clock in the evening too. All clear, put away product, SQDP, dashboard on the floor. Here is improvement, 62%. This is 2016, we started there in 2015. The baseline was 2015. So 62% improvement. Now, after 18 months of trial and tribulation, we have the pilots done. We had the results validated both operationally, financially, and from a customer's perspective. And by the way, don't forget about employees. You will see that they are more engaged. They feel like coming to work. We went, with that in place, we went to our leadership saying, what do you want to do with these results from the 4 places across the globe? They said, let's launch it. October is when we got the approval to launch it. January is when we conducted a lean orientation workshop for 150 top-level executives to say, this is it. We are starting, join. It was very good for the CEO to say, you're either with the program or you're against the program. That helped, right? With that in place, I have a little cheat sheet here, which everybody gets if you're part of the company. It's a very simple, elegant, lean deployment model. So a frontline associate can talk about it, a CEO can talk about it. So we developed this line in the sand. Lean is about line in the sand. You continue to be humble, learn, and adjust. We have started this journey. I traveled quite a bit. Already the seeds are germinating. You can see the saplings coming out in multiple parts of the world. With that, I'll give the...
Great. Thank you, guys. Excellent.